Generation 2, that is Pokémon Gold, Silver and Crystal, were fantastic games, of which I covered in a video a while back. Hint hint, nudge nudge. Watch that one also, please. Thank you. Although it's commonly touted online that their remakes, HeartGold and SoulSilver, are so good that they're not only some of the best Pokemon games ever made, but quite possibly some of the best examples of a perfect remake. So, let's go ahead and put that claim to the test. Like all my previous Pokemon videos, I'll be doing a Nuzlocke run and also be discussing my adventure throughout. For those who don't know, a Nuzlocke run is where I can only catch one Pokemon per area, and if a Pokemon fades, it's considered gone and I have to release it. Since it's been a while, I just thought I'd explain quickly, but without further ado, let's get into the game. Immediately, one really weird change to me is the game's female protagonist. Pokémon Crystal had the first ever playable girl, canonically named Chris, but for HeartGold and SoulSilver, they changed the design to the point where they're now just considered a completely different character called Lyra. I couldn't find anything to say why they decided to change this, since the male protagonist is extremely similar to his original design. I don't dislike Lyra or anything, I just don't understand why the change was made. It's weird, but whatever. The protagonist you don't pick appears as your friend, not your rival. It's a very important distinction. You never battle them, but they will show up throughout the game. Also, they've got a Marill rather than the third starter for some reason, but Marill's cute, so it's all good. Speaking of starters, I went with Totodile. I know I never picked Chikorita when playing through Gen 2 and my original videos, and I like Chikorita, it's cute, don't get me wrong, but it's just so bad in battle compared to Cyndaquil and Totodile, and it puts you at a massive disadvantage in the early game. My girlfriend's not gonna be happy that I've just completely neglected Chikorita, but whatever. Oh no. I named my Totodile K. Rool, and immediately we see one of my favourite features in Pokemon history. The first member of your party will always follow you when walking. It's really small, but the addition of it adds so much personality in my opinion. Like in previous games, Nuzlocks don't start until I have a way of catching Pokemon. I won't go out of my way to overlevel K. Rool, but I'm not going to be running away from every battle either. As a reward for appeasing the government-mandated tutorial man in the next town over, we get the running shoes, as well as the town map. For a while, things play out exactly the same as in the original games. Mr. Pokemon and Professor Oak give the player an egg and the Pokédex, before you get a call from Elm who explains that somebody broke in and stole one of the starters. Of course, this is our rival Silver, and a fun little change they made in how you name him. He refuses to tell you his name, but he drops his ID, and when we take it to the police, we're allowed to name him then. Ethan gives some Pokeballs after yet another mandated tutorial, and then I can start the Nuzlocke proper. The first Pokemon caught in the run was a Hoothoot I named Nowl. Next was a Geodude named Bruce. I don't know why I chose Bruce, I think I just had the Arkham games on the brain. I should cover those sometime. Anyway, next is Rattata that I named Rat. And then a Bellsprout I called Jamie because I also have Street Fighter 6 on the brain. Finally, we have Zubat in the Dark Cave, who I named Crory after the D. Greyman character, and with that, I entered Violet City with a full party. After scaling up the Bellsprout Tower, I take the Elder up on his offer and give Flash to Jamie, fitting since we're in his tower, the Bellsprout Tower. Time to take on the first gym, and since it's flying type, Bruce absolutely crushed it. Elm asks us to keep the egg to look after, and it's in Violet City that we get the first new addition to the remakes. A lady in a kimono comments to us about getting the egg. Keep her in mind because she'll be important later on. I did struggle to find a new Pokemon to catch in the Union Cave, but the egg did hatch into a Togepi in there. I called him Scramble. Once leaving the cave, we find someone being harassed by Team Rocket, and they've had one hell of a glow up. All of their music are absolute bangers, especially the encounter theme. And the Rocket executives have all been given actual names and unique designs, I love it. After clearing them out, I was determined to get a Slowpoke in the well, and it took a while, but I did it. Moving on to the second gym, the only concern I really had was Bugsy's Scythe there, but I got a one-hit KO with Bruce the Geodude. Turns out the gym was actually a non-issue. We have to battle Silver before moving on, and although it was beyond tedious with his Bayleaf constantly poisoning me and healing itself, I did manage to scrape by with no losses somehow. In Ilex Forest, we have to help one of the townspeople get his Farfetch'd back. Stepping on the branches will make it face the direction of the noise, so we can use them to sneak up behind it and catch it. Doing this gets the HM for Cut, and now we can get through the rest of the forest. Near the end, the player encounters the Kimono Girl again. Our Pokemon helps guide her out of the forest, but weirdly she comments that we've never met her despite talking in Violet City. We don't really have time to question it though, and on the way to the next city, I find the daycare. And it turns out the owners are Ethan's grandparents, who will tease them about their relationship with the player a little bit, which I think is a really cute bit of world building. I might as well get some use out of it, so I left Hula the Oddish and scrambled the Togepi in, since the latter was level 1 and I had a replacement in the former in case I lost Jamie the Bellsprout. I caught a Drowsy near here too and named it after Leonard from Drakengard. If you know, you know. A fun fact about this area, this is where I found my first ever random shiny back in the day, a shiny Rattata. When I arrive in Goldenrod, I've got my very first evolved Pokemon of the Nuzlocke, Haru evolved into a Flaffy. There's been a few more additions this go around, making it much more of the bustling city it was portrayed as back in Gen 2. Namely, it now has the global trade station and the accessory parlour underground, and a far more bulked up train station and radio tower. It's time for some preparation before taking on Whitney, and she's just as infamous as in the original games. An NPC will trade a match up for a Drowsy, and lucky for me, I've obviously just caught one, so after some grinding, getting the bike and answering a quiz to get the radio for the Pokegear, I'm sure this loitering rocket grunt is nothing to worry about either, let's just skip over him. It's finally time to take the normal type gym leader on. This was a fight I was absolutely dreading, but it was surprisingly easy. There were no losses here either. She is still a pain in the arse to fight though. Another fun new addition to the game is the Cameraman, an NPC who pops up all over the game to take photos with you with your current team. I already thought this was cool enough just in and of itself, but having this in a Nuzlocke where a team will regularly change makes it even better. There's also the Pokeathlon Dome nearby, a place where you can compete in minigames for points and you can get a variety of items. There's also the bug catching contest, which happens on a Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday, where you can catch some powerful bug types like Heracross and Scyther, but I never got around to it. I did manage to find the Sunkern where they have the bug contest though. I called him Buddy because, you know, he's a nice little bud. I don't think I ever end up using him though. I do use Sudowoodo though. I was gonna call him Murabi, but I used that name last time, so I decided on DJ instead. Of course, you might have noticed my Nuzlocke has been going extraordinarily well. Well, a double battle with two metronome-addicted girls quickly changed that, beating Haru the Flaffy, Jamie the Bellsprout, and Bruce the Geodude. Luckily, I do have Hula the Oddish as a grass backup, and even picked up an Eevee back in Goldenrod. With the addition of Muscle the Machop and DJ, we're onto Ecruteak properly. Inside an ornate building, another Kimono Girl has been harassed by a Team Rocket Grunt. Beating him in a battle rewards the player with Surf. Eugene makes his return from Crystal, and he's on the hunt for Suicune, like usual, who lies at the bottom of the burnt tower with Entei and Raikou. Morty's with him, and so is Silver, so it's time to fight him yet again. Nowl evolves into a Noctowl here too, and with the legendary dogs making their exit, it's time to hit the gym. It specialises in ghost types, and Rat the Raticate and K-Rool make quick work of it. Later on you'll meet a man named, I don't know how you pronounce his name, is it Baboa? Bauba? Booba. Anyway, he says that a new Safari Zone is set to open up past Cianwood. It isn't present at all in the original game, so this will be cool to look around at once it's ready. Of course, Silver shows up at Olivine, and the first thing I thought was that it was another battle that I forgot about, and Kinda panicked since I was not prepared at all, but he's not, he's just complaining that the lighthouse Pokemon Amphi is sick, and it's up to us to get some medicine. Just past Olivine is the Battle Frontier, which isn't open right now, and just like in the other games that feature it, I don't really care about the Battle Frontier. On the way to Cianwood though, Muscle the matchup was absolutely bodied by a Gyarados. It got flinched literally 4 times in a row, which is absolute bullshit, but you know what? It is what it is. I replaced Muscle with Frank the Coughing and got him up to speed with the rest of the party. As well as the medicine, we get a Shuckle for free, so after a bit more grinding, it's time to fight Chuck's gym. I had what I thought was a pretty solid plan, since I remembered him giving me trouble last time around, but before I even got to him, a trainer's Hitmonchan took out Nol the Nactowl and K-Rool the Croconaw, which put a massive dent in my battle plan. I replaced them with Gambon the Farfetch'd and Colin the Tentacruel. With Chuck only managing to take Gambon out, I did manage to beat the gym. There's one more thing to do before heading back to Olivine, and that's paying Suicune a visit, who's just hanging out at the edge of town. Sadly, the Safari Zone isn't open yet, so with nothing else to do here, the priority is heading back and giving medicine to Amphi. The second I'm out the lighthouse, speak of the devil, Booba calls to say the Safari Zone's open. Would have been nice if it was done a bit sooner, but I digress. For a Safari Zone in a Nuzlocke, I don't see any reason not to benefit from it, so I always allow myself a chance to catch one Pokemon per zone or area, so let's see how I do. This specific Safari Zone is unique in the sense that you can change the layout and the selection of wild Pokemon available. This relies on us catching certain Pokemon and showing them to Mr. Boober here though to unlock it. In this case it was a Geodude, but I just couldn't find one, so with nothing else to do after capturing a few new recruits, I need to head back to Olivine. With Jasmine now back at her gym, now that Amphi's well, the game pulls a fun little trick on you. The trainers there will have the exclamation mark and run over to you, but instead thank you for what you've done instead of battling them, allowing you to take on Jasmine one-on-one. It was a tough fight, and she managed to take out most of my team, with Rat the Raticate and Colin the Tentacruel being the only survivors. So you know what that means, it's time for a mostly new team. I've added Lee the Eevee, Gleeok the Magneton, Golly the Golbat and Emma the Nidorina to the team. We find Suicune again, just vibing, before realising we exist in his general vicinity and he just straight up tackles us before running off. I'm also noticing that I'm getting a lot of repeat encounters, so I've resorted to catching Pokemon I've previously lost, like Geodude and Mareep as examples. They've kept the Rocket Grunts extorting money from you on the way to the Lake of Rage too, which I find really funny, and I managed to bump into Entei. Cool. Of course it ran off before I could come close to trying to catch it, but it was cool that I saw him. I get my free shiny Gyarados, even if it's scripted, I'm taking my shiny claws still, let me have fun please. And then storm Team Rocket's base with a Lance. Silver's here too, and he expresses frustration at losing to Lance, and being told the reason why is that he doesn't care about his Pokemon enough. Thankfully he doesn't battle us here either, which I also wasn't prepared for since I forgot again that he showed up here. He's really turning into a jump scare at this point. We fight a new executive, Petrel, who excels at mimicking people. His Murkrow shares his talent and opens the door we need to progress through, only for us to be ambushed by Executive Ariana. Bit of a baddie, and the temporary leader of Team Rocket. Given her design and hair colour, there's a popular theory that she's actually Silver's mother, and I buy this 100%, although I'll talk about Silver's backstory toward the end of the video. After beating her and the Electrode gang forced to power the radio waves, it's time to move on to Mahogany Town's gym before going to a new town. The gym is Ice type, and honestly I was never worried about losing any team members, and like I thought, there were no losses. However, just after leaving, Elm calls to explain that something weird is going on in Goldenrod. It's been completely overtaken by Team Rocket, and in one of my favourite parts of the game, you have to infiltrate the radio tower by disguising yourself as a fellow Rocket member. NPC's dialogue even changed, thinking that you are actually a Team Rocket grunt, which is a really fun attention to detail. But of course, Silver rushes in and completely fucks up our plan with his hatred for Team Rocket. Petrel waits at the top, disguised as the tower director, and gives the key we need to explore underground for beating him. Yet another Kimono girl awaits down there, and congratulates us for taking on Team Rocket on our own, and alludes about a legendary Pokemon before just doing a runner. After fighting more grunts and our rival, again, we find the real director, who gives the key card that we need to progress further, and once it's used, we have to rematch Proton and Ariana, both of whom posed no issue, and with it all being topped off with a fight against the final executive, Archer. I chased him off and obtained the Silver Wing, but at the cost of Colin the Tentacruel and Wrath the Raticate. Very sad. Rest in peace, guys. I added James the Gyarados and Ray the Girafarig to the team after leveling them up a bit. I decided to pay Whirl Islands a visit, and it wasn't anything challenging, but exploring it without Flash is a bit of a ball ache. The monk does let me pass, however there is something that I didn't account for. Lugia only appears when you've gotten all 8 gym badges and interacted with the Kimono girls more. I thought you just needed the Silver Wing and the Silver Wing only. So, I've done all this for literally nothing. Whoops. The next area to get past is the Ice Path. I have to say that I adore the cave/dark path theme in the remakes. It's super enjoyable with the tiniest little bit of hint of danger and mystery. Take a listen. We meet yet another Kimono girl who's stuck in the cave, which is relatable. This part always got me stuck when I was young. The end of the path brings you to Blackthorn City and onto the 8th gym, which focuses on dragon types. I recall mentioning in my Gen 2 video that I think Claire deserves to be hated way more than Whitney does. As evil as her Miltank is, at least she admits that you won fair and square and gives you the badge, even if she has to have a little cry first. Claire just outright says no when you've beat her, and just to rub salt in the wound, she brought James and Ray down in the battle. What a right bitch. Before going into the Dragon's Den, I added Shucky the Shuckle and Josuke the Shiny Gyarados into my party. Dragon's Den was a mixed bag for me. Of course I got the final gym badge in here and managed to catch a Dratini, but Emma the Nidorina was beaten by a trainer inside. I replaced Emma with Floplingo the Jumpluff and visit the lab at the professor's request. It made for a good excuse for travelling downwards to get some new Pokemon anyway. After getting the Skarmory, which was ace, I love that Pokemon, we're given the Master Ball and told that the Kimono girls are waiting for us at the dance theatre back in Ecruteak. Silver had already attempted to beat them in battle, but apparently got his cheeks clapped. He doesn't even want to run the risk of being in the same city as us and winning something that he didn't, so he does a runner. The women explain that a lot of the trials we've come across, like getting the egg from Mr. Pokemon and getting the Silver Wing, they've all been tests to determine if we're worthy of encountering Lugia, with the last trial being back-to-back battles with them all. They all use different evolutions, and luckily I managed to beat them all with no losses to my team. I think them having only one Pokemon per battle each helped. This triggers Lugia to move over to the Whirl Islands now, so it's time to follow along. The Kimono girls await at the bottom, performing a ceremony which both looks and sounds absolutely phenomenal, and with this, Lugia's welcomed. The cutscene and the addition of Lugia's own theme goes a huge way to making it a large, majestic presence without it feeling too imposing. Granted, the battle with it was tough, but I managed to catch it without incident. Once the battle's over, the girls tell us to give Elm their regards, giving the player a clue on where to go next. The professor tells us to head to the right of New Barktown and venture to the Pokémon League now we have all 8 badges. On the way, Golly finally evolved into a Crobat, and at the end of what's probably the easiest victory road in the series, Silver challenges us once again, which isn't surprising, but it has been a while since we fought. I beat him, and we get a hint in his dialogue he's starting to mellow out a little bit, but he did manage to take out Chucky in our fight. So I'm going to grind up the team a little before the Elite Four and the Champion. I got everyone up to what I thought was a reasonable level to take the league on. Everyone is at level 40, and my team consists of Josuke the Gyarados, Golly the Crobat, Floplingo the Jumpluff, Gleeok the Magneton, Lee the Espeon, and Naltor the Rapidash. My battle against the first of the Elite Four, Will, went well overall. My only loss was Naltor, which was a real shame, but I didn't figure it would be a deal breaker. Koga was fine for the most part as well, however his muck was way more troublesome than I thought it would be, managing to take Lee out along with it. The battle with Bruno went much better though, with no losses on my side at all, and getting onto Karen, who I still think is a massively underrated character, despite being the last member of the Elite Four, and like I said the best one in my opinion, she was the easiest to beat for me. Lance was pretty tricky, to say the least, especially his 3 Dragonites. They were absolutely relentless, but I did manage to keep the rest of my team alive and become the Johto region champion. Roll on the credits, and these might be my favourite in the franchise, having an adorable little montage of overworld sprites of all the important characters met on our journey. After the credits, the game picks back up at your house, and the player's mum says that Elm apparently has a gift for us, being the SS ticket, meaning that we can take the boat in Olivine all the way to the Kanto region, seeing as if you've played Gen 2 before, you know that Kanto's gyms will be available to challenge. I decided to get rid of the Pokemon that I lost during the league and get some new members. I added Geo the Taurus and Giganto the Graveler, and just before we leave, Professor Oak upgrades the Pokédex to the National Dex. The second the player's on the boat, an old man runs into you in a rushed panic, stating that his granddaughter's gone missing. I was gonna check all the rooms for items to be fair anyway, so I might as well help him out. After assisting in a few tasks, including waking up a guy sleeping on the job, very relatable, I find the girl and we arrive in Vermilion City. Suicune and Eugene are here for a surprise greeting, with the former dashing off as soon as we see it. With nothing else to do, I took on the nearby gym, earning my first Kanto gym badge, but losing Floplingo the Jumpluff in the process. For whatever reason, this random Plusle Minum double battle was mad strong. It reminds me of the Metronome double battle back near the start of the playthrough now I think about it. There's also this random backpacker here named Virgil? There's not a ton going on in Saffron at the moment. The fighting dojo is completely run down, with the leader apparently running off to Johto. Now, given that Lieutenant Surge caused very little issue, I assumed I wouldn't have much problem with Sabrina. Little did I know, she absolutely rocked my team with only her Espeon. Time for some old-fashioned grinding with a brand new team. With the jump up in levels, I bumped my team up to level 50, with one exception that I'll get into. Now I have Gabora the Noctowl, Gonzap the Skarmory, Ursula the Jinx, Mimikty the Electrode, Felicia the Persian, and lastly Fry the Dragonite, which I had to level up to 55 so that he could evolve. Although since he's probably my strongest Pokemon, I'm swapping him in and out so I'm not too buffed up. My preparation paid off since none of my team were lost in my second fight with Sabrina, and for now I'm going to be swapping Fry with Big Man the Quagsire. I went upwards to Cerulean City next, and I've never really thought much about the place, but it looks so much more vibrant and colourful here. It's by far the best depiction of it, including later renditions like in the Let's Go games. There's nobody at the gym, so I'll have a look around elsewhere, especially with everyone saying there's some issue with the power plant at the moment. As it turns out, an important generator part has been stolen, and a shifty character's been loitering around Cerulean Gym. How odd. Of course, it's the GOAT, the Bye-Bye-A-Go-Go man, the best Team Rocket grunt of them all. After getting the generator back from him, you can go and cockblock some guy on a date with Misty. I don't feel the slightest bit bad about it either. I want my goddamn gym badge. The next destination for me is Lavender Town, and it's had a cheery little facelift. The Pokemon Tower has been converted into a radio tower, which admittedly is more welcoming than a big old funeral building. But don't they ever worry that the radio tower's haunted, or like, ghosts get into the radio waves? Or is that too conspiracy theory? Anyway, because we fixed the generator problem, we got our Pokegear upgraded, and down on the sea area below, you're given the Super Rod. Honestly, given it way too late in my opinion, I don't know why it's left for so long, but anyway, we can now use the upgraded Pokegear to play the Pokeflute theme on the radio to wake up and catch Snorlax. Along Route 14 we have another run-in with Suicune. There's nothing really of note, it's literally just battles all along this route, apart from the run-in with the legendary Pokemon and Eugene giving us a little clue on where it's going to be next. Fuchsia's Safari Zone's been completely scrapped. It's replaced with the PAL Park, which is the method to transfer Pokemon from the earlier GBA games. You may ask how the gym is active if Coke is an Elite Four member now. Well, that's because his daughter Janice has taken over the role. The gimmick is exactly the same as before, with the invisible walls all over, as well as the addition of all the trainers mimicking the new gym leader. Thankfully, it didn't give me any trouble. I went to go see if you could take the route downwards to Cinnabar afterwards, but it's blocked off due to construction, so I'm heading left to the cycling path. It's a lot more industrialised than in Fire Red and Leaf Green, which is sad since there's much less chance of finding wild Pokemon. Celadon hasn't changed much at all though, although it is shit that the department store doesn't sell the elemental stones anymore. You do get a cool little cameo from Crash Awake in the building though, so I guess it's not all bad. I would like the stones back though, that was really helpful. Erica and the gym aren't really anything special either. Pretty though. The gym, I mean, not her. That was a bit unintentionally mean. Sorry, Erica. Sorry for insulting you, fictional Pokemon character. Did not mean to. My original plan was to go to Mount Moon to get to Pewter City via Cerulean, but I couldn't find a way up, so I went via the Diglett Cave instead. Once I get to Pewter, the old man gives the Rainbow Wing, or Silver Wing if you're playing HeartGold, which will be very useful later on. But for now, my priority is getting the rest of the badges, and for being the formerly first and weakest gym leader, Brock's Kabutops gave me a surprising amount of trouble, but I managed to pull through. Taking a trip to Mount Moon, our rival is waiting there, immediately challenging us to a battle. He does seem more mellow still, but frustrated since he can't understand why he keeps losing. He just figures that he needs more training, and that the Dragon's Den back in Johto is the best place for it. Unfortunately, Mount Moon's not nearly as expansive as it once was, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. It's pretty much just 2 rooms that either lead to Route 4 or a little Clefairy sanctuary. Getting back to Viridian City, it of course has a gym, but you can't access it until you have the other 7 badges, which tracks, that's always how it's been. Plus I wanted to check out Pallet and Cinnabar Island first anyways. Cinnabar's completely destroyed. I always forget it's slap bang next to a volcano. Blue's there, but until we get Blaine's badge, he won't give us the time of day. He's holed up in the Seafoam Islands, but instead of getting to him right away, I wanted to explore the island fully first, eventually encountering Articuno at the bottom. The best legendary bird, I will not hear anything against it. Thank you. With all of the Seafoam Islands explored, I go upstairs to fight Blaine. I've honestly never thought much of him as a gym leader or a character really, but look at this redesign, my man has drip! It's just a shame his battle isn't as intense as his clothing choices though. With him out the way, Blue is waiting for us at Viridian's gym for Kanto's final badge. Although normal types seem to be a bit more favoured, the coolest thing about this gym is that there's not a specific type any trainer sticks to, with Blue keeping a lot of his original team, except instead of any Kanto starter, he has a mix of the possible Pokemon he used based on your starter in the Kanto games. The fight was pretty tough, he even managed to beat Ursula the Jinx and Mimikyu the Electrode, but I emerged victorious. I replaced him with Shmee the Snorlax and Maggie the Magneton. Professor Oak gives you the HM for Rock Climb and arranges for us to access Mount Silver. Like with the Super Rod, I don't know why they waited so long to give you Rock Climb, that feels really weird, but there's a couple of things I want to do before heading to the final new area. I guess I'll call this the Legendary Roundup. Let's start with Suicune. The clue provided when we saw this last points to it being where we encountered Misty on a date back at Cerulean. Next on the list is Zapdos, who's just chilling by the side of the power plant. I really like the idea of him just vibing and greeting all the workers after their shift, like, hey Bill, working hard or hardly working, me, just being a cool lightning deity guy. Living legend, you know. But I don't forget the little guy. Something like that. I'm gonna stop now. Since we're right next to it, I decided to swing on by into Cerulean Cave and have a little catch up with the resident cave goblin himself. None other than Mewtwo. After his battle, I went back to the Dragon's Den. Silver's training with a starter when him and the player bump into Lance and Claire, and we have a double battle against the Dragon duo. It was a really hard fight, with Fry the Dragonite being my only survivor, but this fight goes to show a really good piece of subtle character growth for Silver. His Golbat has now evolved into a Crobat, a Pokemon that can only evolve through maximum friendship, something he's historically struggled with across the game. To add to his character further, I wish the limited Celebi event was part of the game as a side quest. In this, you travel back to the past and find Giovanni, you being the reason why he doesn't go to reunite with Team Rocket when they take over the radio tower. Your character stops him in the past before he can get there. It's here you find out that the Team Rocket boss is Silver's father, and his abandonment of his son is the reason for his hatred of Team Rocket, and why he finds being openly compassionate so difficult. It's why he's one of my favourite rivals, and by extension characters in the series. There's just a lot of subtle depth to him, in my opinion. And with Ariana being his mother, I think just given the hair colour and hairstyle, that it's pretty obvious that she is most likely his mother. It makes sense that a Rocket executive, someone who's very high up in Team Rocket, would get with Giovanni and they'd have a kid together. That aside, let's move on. With the Rainbow Wing we got back in Pewter City, I can now get into Ecruteak City's Bell Tower to battle Ho-Oh. I absolutely love that you get the chance to encounter the other box legendary. I think it's genuinely insane that this is something that the games do so rarely. I know it's to sell more copies of each version, but still, come on. Anyway, Ho-Oh. A grueling battle follows against this legendary Pokemon, the creator of the legendary dogs, arguably, and the guardian of the bell tower. I got him already. I also just learned that you get the EXP share by giving Mr. Pokemon the red scale that you get from the shiny Gyarados. Am I just stupid or something? I just assumed the game just either didn't have one or it was a reward for some obscure side quest that I forgot to do. I mean, I guess it is technically, but like, it's really tucked away and just a random NPC house and you have to do something else. I don't know. I just never found it. It's now time to take on Mount Silver, and my new team is Fry the Dragonite, Starman the Starmie, Jabbert the Nidoking, Heckhound the Houndoom, Bruce the Marowak, and Zulman the Hypno. I named Marowak Bruce because Cubone having no parents obviously made me think of Bruce Wayne, but I completely forgot at the time I named Geodude that at the start of the playthrough. I must really have the Arkham games on the brain, jeez. Getting into Mount Silver itself, the last of the legendary birds can be found, Moltres. I suppose with no Sevi Islands and Victory Road being completely different, there was no other place they could really put it, to be fair. It just feels kind of weird that he's there, and he's, in my opinion, the worst of the three legendary birds. Like, why are you putting him in the most out of reach place? Doesn't feel appropriate. Getting to the peak, we're up against the big man himself, Red. He has a slightly adjusted team compared to the original games, with him replacing his Espeon with a Lapras, and his team all being at least level 80 instead of level 70, including his Pikachu rocking a whopping level 88, being one of, if not the single highest level trainer Pokemon in history. Defeating him takes you right to the credits and back to your home, but unlike in Gold, Silver and Crystal, there's still a couple more things that open up after Red's defeat. Firstly, Oak gives you one of the Kanto starters for your victory, and secondly, a side quest opens up back in Saffron City. Speak to the Mimic Girl and she'll explain that she's lost a Clefairy doll in Vermilion. A member of the Pokemon fan club picked it up, and getting it back will result in an interaction with Steven. He explains he's travelled from Hoenn to chase after Latios, or Latias if you play in HeartGold, and he's travelled here, and you can now encounter the roaming legendary. Giving the Clefairy doll back will reward you with a pass for the Magnet Train, and when going to the Silphco building, you'll meet Steven again, who will give you a choice of the Hoenn starters. The last thing of note requires you to travel back to see Mr. Pokemon. Depending on the version, he'll give you a red or blue orb. Go to Cianwood and travel up to the cliffside and you'll run into Cliff, who will tell you all about a hidden area called the Embedded Tower, and that you'll need both rock climb and surf to get there. Crash Awake's also here again, just hanging out. If you talk to him, he'll just tell you nice, encouraging things, so that's cool. He's a good boy. Climb up to the Embedded Tower and you'll find Kyogre or Groudon lying in wait. I wanted to catch Groudon for the video, but I critted him by accident, so there's that idea out the window. Side note, you can also find Rayquaza here if you have both Pokemon. There's also another really cool exclusive event where you can travel to an area called the Sinjoh Ruins with Cynthia and get a choice of Dialga, Palkia or Giratina after one of the trippiest cutscenes in Pokemon history. Arceus or God is just really out here giving you a creation speedrun tutorial with your Goth GF. You've gotta love it. Not only are Pokémon HeartGold and SoulSilver absolutely outstanding JRPGs in their own right, filled to the brim with fun, engaging content, it may just be an example of one of the best remakes of all time. They somehow managed to make an already fantastic set of games in Gold, Silver, and Crystal infinitely better. My only complaint is the time-exclusive events I mentioned not being permanent parts of the game, and that's just me wanting more to play. It's not really a complaint, it's just I want to play them anytime I want. I don't want them to be time-exclusive. Generation 4 just did not miss. Now, if only the modern outings could take a few notes from the games of this era, I think Pokemon would be in a lot better place, critically and perception-wise with the fan base, but that's a video for another time. But I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you've liked the video, please hit like, subscribe for more, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.